Hello and welcome to the Understanding Narcissists YouTube channel. Now we get to another topic which is pretty simple at the outset. It sounds pretty simple, it looks pretty simple, but there's probably a lot more going on than the name implies. Something you will notice, probably not immediately because they will hide it, but something you will notice about a narcissist down the line, and increasingly so as things progress, and increasingly so when they're under pressure, is their paranoia. Paranoia to the degree of mental illness makes sense. Narcissism is a mental illness, a disorder. It seems like it comes out of nowhere because they hide it the rest of the time. So most of the time when you see them, they are playing Mr. or Miss Reasonable. Nothing, not worried about anything, nothing in particular bothers them. They're very grounded, they're very down to earth, they're very reasonable. But when they are put in a situation where, not so much where they feel like they're being betrayed, though that can set them off too. It's more that if they are fooled, if somebody manages to get by their guard, or they are wronged in the slightest way, and it could be a real wrong, you see it reverberate down into them, and you see how deep everything is. If you understand what I'm saying, that there's a lot more going on than what they imply on the outside, what they let you in on. You start to get a feeling of, and this will naturally emanate from them because this is how they are, that sub-layer of emotional communication will let you know, you'll feel its kind of oscillations about how they really feel about others, which is a deep sense of distrust and of being wronged. Narcissists always have a passive guard up. And probably for good reason. Before I go into dismantling, and really for the purpose of understanding, dismantling to understand them, let's look at, just for a second, they are reasonable in their own minds. Because wherever they're from, and this is something I think I will always support, wherever, and they'll never talk about, and maybe that's why I support it, because I think it makes it all the more real that they avoid it. Where they're from, that's how you have to live to get by. They are, as an adaptation, that might not be the best word for it, but it's the best one I can find. As an adaptation to an environment, their behavior, it is reasonable. They grew up in an unreasonable environment. It is bizarre. It was very abusive. It was very traumatic. They had to do something, and they had no choice. They were victims. So, pity them in the sense that when they go out into the world and they project all that everywhere, if it is even projection, I mean, it's just their understanding. It's a huge assumption. They didn't develop. They can't open up. They didn't get beyond a certain stage of development. It shouldn't be surprising, and it's very sad. So they are victims. That is where they're right. It's really at home in their origins that they're correct. Now, what makes them wrong is that they never bring that up. They never admit to that. It's never something that's surfaced. Again, can't be vulnerable. Can't bring it up. But to get back to the deep distrust, what's the core issue here? Where does the paranoia come from? Well, it's not paranoia when it's an environment where people really are trying to get at you. The only way you can really resolve it logically is to realize that if you take their origins and say, this is a very dangerous environment, and they just assume for safety, and because it's all they know, that everyone is like that and everywhere is like that, well, then you're not really being paranoid, are you? Because it's true. Now, in this case, it happens to be unreasonable and wrong and paranoid because people aren't like that. So to them, it's not really being paranoid, it's being reasonable. It's being safe, it's being smart. And when within that very limited box that they're in, that's where you see the petty behaviors. Getting one over on somebody else. That's a big deal to them. That's winning. That's winning in life. You know, they don't those long-term goals, productive activity, changing your life, that doesn't exist. That's not on the table. That's not real. It's all fake. Everybody's out to get everybody else. People don't cooperate. They just do it to get something. To the extent that that runs their life, which is pretty much all of it that I can tell, always very guarded, always very paranoid about everybody else trying to get them. That points to what really illustrates their lack of development. What points to their issues is that they really assume that everybody is like them. Everybody is like them. Now, the problem with that, with what I just said, is that there's kind of some contradictions there. Because that would mean that you're like them. Of course you're not. But all it means is that they think you're like them. And they treat you like you're like them. As the way they behave is to hurt you, manipulate you, but also to passively defend themselves against you doing the same against them. That's life. That's the game. That's the fight. But the thing is, if it were true, it wouldn't work. If you were actually a narcissist, that their little scheme wouldn't work as well as it does. It doesn't work on other narcissists. It only works on the enablers, on the dependents, on the people who put up with that kind of thing and who are necessarily not narcissistic. So what is the contradiction here? Well, I think it's a contradiction in them, like there are many, many contradictions. Contradictions on, opposite sides of the spectrum, where they really kind of are people of opposites. There are so many things they feel that in order to cover up, they say the opposite. They proclaim the opposite. They try to put up a facade that conveys the opposite. It's not true. But needless to say, who they have to be and who they really are is always in conflict, because the real problem here is self-acceptance and self-love. This will be a topic for another video, I think, because it's really deep. But what's really the problem here? I think, and it took me a while to get to this point, I think they hate themselves. But they are not emotionally equipped or mature enough to realize it and accept it. It seems Freudian to me. It just seems one of those pie-in-the-sky type of ideas. But I think that idea exists not because I'm generating it, but because it is something, or not because people are generating it and making it up. It's because it's something we do see. It's just bizarre. It's so bizarre. And so many things with narcissists are bizarre. With the world that they create and the world that's always in conflict in their minds, I think it's pretty consistent, thankfully, because narcissists are very similar. They fit a very strict definition. And so you see these among narcissists, it's going to be the same thing. And that conflict is a consistent thing among narcissists. Now, it's really hard to find out. Now, if you know a narcissist, you'll know what I'm talking about. Most likely. It makes sense to you because you see it. It's not something you sit and think about away from the, if you're not around narcissists, but if you see narcissists, it makes sense. It's just so bizarre, and that emotional undercurrent that you can't necessarily prove, but is still there nonetheless. And that's the level that narcissists work on. You can kind of begin to understand that sub-layer, and that's really where the true content is. That's how you're going to understand them. That's how you're going to learn them. The very things they use to communicate with you that isn't about words or isn't even really about physical body language or paralanguage, even though that's there too. It's that emotional undercurrent that they somehow are able to emanate, like some kind of aura. It's very strange if you've experienced it, which you probably have. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Like it if you do, share it with somebody you think might benefit from it, comment in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching. Bye.